this is the topic that I picked today, abstraction for the agentic enterprise. So Rania went in detail, so I'll try to kind of repeat some of the stuff, but then again in a different level. That's what I'm planning to do. So we're in Austin. It says like it's a live music capital. Brett, I don't know whether you will agree with that because Nashville, again, yeah, okay, we should not debate about it. Yeah, so it says this is a live music capital. So I picked an analogy based on music because I love music. I can't sing, but I love it. So this is our office. We had a really nice office before pandemic in Castro Street. So this is our office. And before pandemic, then I thought of I should learn how to play a guitar. Okay, it might be midlife crisis. Then I found a tutor and started learning the guitar. So how good I am today, I'll explain. So my dogs, they howl. My neighbors, they complain. And my fingers hurts. So that's how good I am. I'm still learning. Okay. So why I took this analogy, when you start playing a guitar, you kind of pay attention to certain stuff. First, at the beginning, you pay attention to your fingers. That's the only thing that you do. Then once you get better with your fingers, then you put attention to the chord. And then once you better with those stuff, then you pay attention to the outcome or the music that coming out of the guitar. So this is kind of a pattern. So it is not that you stop mattering about those things because things are getting abstracted, you don't pay attention to those things. So that's why the finger chord, those things goes away. For a professional musician, they only worry about the music. That's why based on the crowd and how they react, they play different type of styles because they don't worry about the first two things. So that's called the abstractions. And in the computer in the technology world, like we see a lot of abstractions. And this is nothing new. It is nothing new. It is not only during the agentic era. Like if you take a look, it happened during these different phases and different stages that we had in the past. So if you look at this client server, basically it hit the machine first. And then the web, it hit the location because with the web, it doesn't matter where you are. You can access some capabilities. You can search stuff. You can do anything using the web. Then the cloud or cloud technologies, it hit the infrastructure, and you don't worry about the infrastructure. You can run any workload based on the way that you want with the cloud when it came to the cloud. And then the agentic, basically, what it does, it's basically abstracting the execution. And today the focus is about that, how agentic technologies are abstracting the execution. Then the way enterprises are structured and when enterprises are operating, it is basically designed for manual execution. And depending on the maturity and how long they are in the industry, it differs, but most of the enterprises, we have a lot of technical debt, and then because of that, it kind of designed for this manual execution. So how it works, basically, you kind of identify the stuff, and then you interpret, and then you approve, and then you trigger something. This is what's really happening, and this is why some of the executions is really getting time. It can delay during each and every step that they have to take to do something. But agents are acting different, right? I think Rania clearly explained it, how these non-deterministic systems are working. So how an agent works, basically, it plan, it reason, and then it act. So that is how agents are working. So identifying this is pretty important because you have to change your thought process, your mental model on how agents are behaving and how agents are working to design these systems. Then there's a problem. It can break at certain point. How and why it is breaking? Because the things that build for human, if it is kind of used by agents, things can get into trouble, and then it will not give the desired output you are expecting from these agents, because most of the systems are built for human, and that's why we need to rethink. I think during yesterday keynotes, this thing got highlighted. I think Derek from our API business unit, he clearly explained how these current APIs are done for human and why we had to rethink about it. That is one example. Many stuff, including data, processes that we identify inside the enterprises are done for humans. So we have to rethink about this. Otherwise, it's going to be an issue. Because good abstractions are really good, but leaky abstractions creating issues. And that example is one scenario for leaky abstractions. Then how we are going to design a well-abstracted enterprise, and how it looks like is the next thing that we need to think. So there can be different ways to approach this, but I took a three-legged approach. Basically, three things that helping to define a model. First thing is the intent. Second thing is the context and boundaries. So intent, context, and boundaries, those are the three things that we can clearly identify. And if you take one by one, the intent is basically you are abstracting the goal and not the steps that you have to do. If you kind of go into the steps, then it goes back to that deterministic system, and then certain set of workflow stages, and you will end up there. So that's why you have to abstract the goal, not the steps that you are going to do. In our analogy, it's basically the song, that you abstract the output that is coming out, not the steps that you are taking to create that. So that is about the intent. Then how you can make the intent structural. First thing is, as we explained earlier, you have to define the goals, not the task. That's the first thing you have to do. Second thing is you have to encode the constraints upfront, because you can't identify the constraints and apply it at the execution. You have to do it at the beginning, because it's not like human, the way agents work. So it's pretty important to understand and define these constraints. Then again, it's not like human. You need to make sure the agents are behaving well. So you need to define the success matrix, and then only you can evaluate the agent and make sure that it is behaving well and giving the desired output for you. So those are the three things that you can put together to make the intent structure. So let's get into the context. So this is a very interesting topic that people think you put some set of information and that is the context, but it is not that. It contains a lot of stuff. One thing is the architecture, and one thing is the policies that you put, and then the trust levels, then data access. All these kind of stuff are pretty important, because just putting some information will not provide enough context for the agent to operate in the and give the output that you are looking for. Based on our analogy, it's basically the notes that you take and then play music, because it gives the structure, it gives enough information for a musician to play the song. So that's called the context. Then how you define the context, and then how you make sure your agentic framework can access the context. First thing is keep it current, because it's pretty important. It has to be real time, and it has to have the latest information. So you need to keep it current. Not only current, you have to make it accessible. That's where the techniques like tools or the APIs are coming into the picture, and it has to provide that necessary context to the agent to operate and provide that desired output. So then the next thing is it has to be protected by specific boundaries. Um, if the context is available for each and every agent, then it's a problem because you need to secure your data. Data can be sensitive stuff about your customers and certain set of information. So you need to make sure that these are protected with defined domain boundaries. I think there was a session done by Von Vennen about how domain-driven design can be used in agentic enterprise. So techniques like that should be used to protect this context and make sure that relevant agents are getting the relevant context and operate using those data. Then the next thing is about boundaries, how you can define the boundaries. So it connected to the context as well. So if you have the boundaries, then you can control this stuff. So if we take the analogy that we use, it's like the fretboard, right? Because you have limitation, plus based on the fretboard operates, you kind of play the music. So it's like the boundary defined to operate within that particular boundary. So it clearly control how you play the guitar. So then how you make the boundary structure, we need to make sure that you have a framework to do that. Then the first thing is you had to enforce the limit by design. Now you can't put the limitations at the runtime. It might be really dangerous. So you have to make sure that you limit this stuff at the design time and then have machine readable policies that you can apply for these things and design it at that level. Second thing is you have to have more decentralized approach because earlier days we used to have this centralized approach. It doesn't work. That's where concepts like control planes, data planes will come and play a role. So it has to be a decentralized execution, but having a complete decentralized system might be really dangerous. So you need to have some federated control. So federation and decentralization will work. Again, I'm going back to the control plane and data plane. So data plane will give you an environment to decentralize these workloads and agents, and then the control plane will come and do the federated oversight, so that way you can control stuff. Then my favorite topic. So you can use domain-driven design and the cell-based architecture that we introduced some time back as a way to create this model. So first thing is DDD will define the bounded context, and the cell will create that runtime environment for you. And if you are new to this concept, I have put the URL. You can go and take a look and read more about that. So cell is like a fish tank that it creates a boundary, and then inside that you will have components like fish inside a fish tank. So that's how you can control these boundaries. Then there's another problem if you go back to where it breaks. If there's a human between these boundaries, it doesn't work. It will become a bottleneck, and it will not have that seamless flow that you are expecting from an agent to operate and provide that output. So we had to be very careful with that. So if you relook at it, this is the model. You had to focus on the intent, context, and the boundaries. So how it will apply basically, when it apply for the enterprise, then you will see a big change. The people will move up to the intent. So basically then developers will be more like architects and designing, and they will become more architects and they will focus on design. And the agents take the execution, and the architecture that you put will carry the context and the boundary. So that's kind of a change will happen if you focus on this stuff and abstract these three things. Then as a technology company, what we are doing, we are building these abstractions for you to abstract your enterprise and make it easy for you. So that is what we do, and a lot of things you heard during last 2 days, tutorials, sessions from internal folks, and then how customers are experiencing these abstractions in various customer discussions that we had. So that is what we do. So we do it that at 3 levels. First thing is the strategy, and second thing is the architecture, and third level is the technology. At the technology, you heard a lot about technology, so I'll a little bit focus on the first two things, the strategy and the architecture. Why strategy is important? Because most of the organizations are in the early stage and then putting a strategy. But the traditional way of moving step by step doesn't work here because there's no time. Everybody wants to be agentic, and then you have to deliver value with that. So you need to find a way how you can leapfrog to from where you are today to the desired or the North Star that you have set to become a agentic enterprise. So that's where we can help and work with you and define the strategy by identifying the current state of the organization, where you want to be, what are the priorities, and use the technology as a driver to deliver these things. So that is one thing that we can help and get you. The second thing is about the architecture. This is a generic diagram. Most of the enterprises are at this stage that you have the API gateways, you have services, you have integrations, identities, and then you have this system of record. That's how these enterprises are structured today. So that requires to change because you need some new things to bring to your enterprise architecture. And Rania explained that you should not build it in parallel. You should have to bring it to the enterprise architecture. So that's where these new components that colored in blue color will come and play a role. Like you need additional gateways, you need to change the data, like using knowledge bases and context graphs, and various other stuff need to come into the picture to build and become an agentic enterprise. So this is a reference architecture that we have defined based on the current context, and it can change with the changes are happening. But this is a good start. So you can take a look at what are your priorities, what type of stuff that you are planning to do, and then bring necessary components. I'm not expecting you to bring everything at once. Based on the business priorities, based on the applications that you are building, based on the agents that you are building, you can decide from where to start and then slowly modify the architecture. Again, we will iteratively improve this thing with the changes happening in the industry from the product stuff, as well as while we are learning working with you on these projects. So, and we will keep you updated with that. So that is basically the architecture. And the technology side, again, I'm not going to spend too much of time. So this is where the Agentic Enterprise Fabric will come and play a role, that all the 5 platforms and the solutions will provide that foundation for you to build these agentic applications. And not only that, there are 2 levels, right? You build these agentic applications if you have a cleaner abstraction layer, but enterprises are complex, very adaptive. So you need to do the plumbing of the current stuff, the data systems, and even the identities that you have. So you have to build that layer, so we can help at both levels. Build the plumbing, make it clear, create clear abstractions, and on top of that, you can start building the new world. So that is where all these 5 platforms are helping, and make sure that you can deliver the expected results for your customers and your stakeholders of the organization. So we wrote a detailed paper about this thing on how the agentic enterprise operates, and then how WSO2 platforms can help. If you are interested, you can go and read this paper. So what actually matters is basically, it's not the mechanics, and it's not the platform, it's not the agents. What really matters is the outcome and the value, because that's what the business stakeholders are expecting, as well as you need to deliver from the technology. Otherwise, again, you will just create the technical debt. So no point of doing that. You need to focus on the outcomes and the value that you are generating. So that's where, like, even most of you got the book that we publish. Again, the focus there was how you can create value out of the things that you are doing, and use the technology as a driver to deliver value. And hopefully you will read the book and then give some really good comments. So outcome and value, that's the key thing. And I would like to end it in a different way of explaining it, because we took an analogy from music. So the outcome should be, and the goal is about the music, because you need to keep focusing on the value and the outcomes. So that's it. Thank you very much.